Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Your Data, Your Way, How ABC Supplies Streamlined Data Access for Customized Reporting. My name is Jessica Malakian, and I'll be today's moderator. So let's start by quickly introducing today's speakers. For today's webinar, we have Stephen Harmelin and John Colbert. Steve currently manages the QAD and Pro2 services teams worldwide. Prior to joining Progress, Steve headed up a Progress-based consulting firm for 30 years, which specialized in creating custom business applications, supporting existing third-party applications, and providing DBA and system administration support for national and international companies. Steve also has a degree in electrical engineering, specializing in data telecom, and served as vice president of engineering for a voice processing company. John Colbert is a manager of information technology for ABC Supply. He has over 40 plus years of experience with a focus on ERP development. He started his career in the manufacturing sector and currently is in distribution. And now I'll turn it over to Steve and John to start the presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate that. Okay, so first we're going to talk about a reporting challenge, the what ifs, untimely data, the solution. Then we're going to go into a case study where John will go ahead and talk about ABC Supply and their use of Pro2. We'll do a quick summary, and then we will open it up for a question and answer session. So the reporting challenge. You have your ERP application, whether it's an ERP, a CRM, or an SCM application. What you get off the shelf, you get the reports that the provider thinks you need. Well, as we all know, what we get out of the box is not really everything we need. Every business has their own specific needs for their reporting. What they get out of the box or their standard ERP doesn't really cut it for them. It may, when they first get it, as the business grows, they have more needs for information. Maybe it's a warehouse operation. Maybe it's a manufacturing operation. Well, maybe the application serves those purposes and they serve them just fine. Well, what about the rest of the business? What about the managers? What about the executives in the corporation? They want to know what's going on also. Well, the application may not provide the reports that they need. So therefore, there's a need to have customized reports. So the what ifs. What if you could actually access all of your data and do what you want with the data without impacting your application? What if you could go to SQL Server? You could get your data into SQL Server. Well, let's say you don't like SQL Server. Maybe you have people in-house that are Oracle folks. Well, you can do this in Oracle as well. Or what about if you don't have any in-house people that know SQL or Oracle, but you have staff on board that are familiar with OpenEdge? In fact, I have one customer, fairly large customer, who their in-house resources were all OpenEdge people. So they didn't want to go to SQL Server. They didn't want to go to Oracle. They said, we wanted to go to OpenEdge so we can develop our own reports in-house. And it's worked out great for them. Since most of our customers use SQL Server, and that's really the majority of what the industry uses, we'll just talk about SQL Server for now. So once you get your data in SQL Server, you can create your own views. You can create stored procedures. Maybe you have processes that are repeatable. They need to be repeatable all the time. Well, you can have stored procedures that can be executed to generate what's needed. And with SQL Server, there are so many third-party reporting solutions that you can use. And you can find one that serves your purposes and your needs and your BI users' needs. Here are just some examples. If we have SQL Server, you've got Power BI, SQL Server itself, SharePoint, Tableau, Google Data Studio, BI 360. These are just a few, but it's not an exhaustive list right here. So let's talk about the problem, which is untimely data is really the problem. The problem in today's business is you need your data and you need to be accurate and current. Well, a lot of companies will maybe run a nightly process that exports their data from their application, and then it will import it into SQL Server or some other type of third-party database. Well, by the next morning, that data is already stale, and that's a problem. And then what happens if, well, that nightly batch process failed? I had a customer, and that's how they did things originally. And that's a problem that they had all the time. The next morning, they would get in and say, it didn't work. Our data is still old. So it's really critical to run your business with up-to-date data, especially when you have to use that data for critical decision-making, and especially your C-level reporting, your executives. They want their data now and relevant. So what are the obstacles? Well, I gave you one example of an obstacle right there, where you do your nightly batch job. Real-time data, getting your data in real time is difficult. It's not something that's easy to do. You have to consider getting your data out of OpenEdge and into some other target, whether it be SQL Server or Oracle. Well, the data structures, there are differences between OpenEdge and SQL Server and Oracle. So you have to take those into account. And then you have to consider your continuous connection to your application to pull the data in near real time. How do you do that? What do you do about performance or the performance hit on your application? Because if you now add reporting load to the application that's running your warehouse, your manufacturing facility, or whatever it is, if you're adding all that reporting load, now you're hurting performance. So you have somebody who may be on the manufacturing floor and they need to ship something out and they're just waiting because the application is just stopped or delayed and they're just sitting there waiting at their screen. What about compliance? Okay, this picture here, we have a picture of a hacker. So what about compliance? First of all, you can't just export personal data. It has to be tightly controlled. That is critical. Also, the data cannot be unencrypted. It should not be in the clear. Think about audits, government regulations. Think about HIPAA with government regulations. Think about healthcare companies and the HIPAA regulations that they have to follow. That is just critical. What about internal restrictions? Data has become critical to company operations, and data access is critical, and restricting that access is also critical. We all know nowadays with all of the cyber attacks that are happening, you want to make sure that your data is protected. An additional layer for adding protection is you can add TLS or SSL. You can add that to also add additional encryption. So Progress' solution is OpenEdge Pro 2. OpenEdge Pro 2 provides near real-time replication to OpenEdge users. It's a way to get your data outside of your application. It'll process it, and then it will load it into Oracle, SQL Server, or another OpenEdge database. The reason I say near real time is there can be external forces that can cause some delay in the replication that's outside of Pro 2. So that's why I say near real time. In most cases, if it's just standard business day operation where users are create, update, and deletes to information, those will normally process very quickly. So then I had mentioned in a previous slide, well, what about network issues? Well, okay, let's say you have Pro 2 and you had a network issue. Your network went down. Not a problem, because what happens is on your application, there's part of Pro 2 that actually sits on your application, and it will continue to record those create, update and delete events. Now, those events are actually recorded as an event note. So it's a very small footprint on your application. So your performance hit should be very minimal. So it will keep recording those events. And then when your connection is restored, Pro2 will start processing those events and start replicating that data over to your target database. So the replication benefits. Pro2 is highly configurable and flexible. It's optimized for production performance. That's basically what I said, where it's a small footprint on your production environment. It is multi-threaded. You can have multiple threads that replicate data over to your target, whether it's SQL or Oracle or another OpenEdge database. In fact, if let's say you have tables that are extremely hard hit by batch jobs or users where millions and millions and millions of updates occur, we can actually split that table across multiple threads so that now you're processing that data in parallel to help and improve performance. I already spoke about the connectivity limitation. There is none. If there is a connectivity issue, Pro2 will pick it back up when the network comes back up. Low impact, and it's scalable, and it records your create, update, and delete events, which I call CUD, and that's how it works. When a create, update, and delete event occurs, it records an event note. It's very small so that there's minimal impact to your system. Also, Pro2 can be configured in many different scenarios. You can have everything on premises. You could have your source application, your production application on premises, and you can have Pro2 and your target in a cloud operation, whether it's Azure, AWS, Google, or some other cloud. So there's a lot of different configurations you can have with Pro2 and where your data is located. And now I would like to go ahead and turn this over to John Colbert, where he can talk about how they were able to take Pro2 and use it within ABC Supply to improve their reporting and operation. Take it away, John.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks, Jessica. Yeah, as Jessica mentioned, I'm John Colbert. I'm an IT application development manager. People call me Jack. Last people that called me John, I think, were the nuns at St. Stanislaus Bishop and Martyr Grade School. But you can call me anything you want, and I'll answer to it. So how do we get here? ABC Supply was founded in 1982 and is North America's leader in building material distribution with over 900 locations in the United States and Canada. Our customers use us because we provide a valuable service. We not only deliver to a job site, we place the material where it can be easily accessed by the contractor's installers, saving them the time and effort of hauling it to the workspace themselves. Contractors are our primary customer base, but we also offer retail to the general public with showrooms in each of our stores. Our interior business delivers roofing and related products, while our exterior business delivers drywall and related products. Both had operated successfully under two separate legacy ERPs for many years and had external reporting capabilities, but these required time-consuming nightly data exports and ETL processes that were prone to issues and required quite a bit of maintenance and support. Also, the data was always a day old. With that in mind, and with our plans for future growth and our desire for additional functional capabilities, the decision was made to consolidate to a single new and modern ERP. The selected ERP offered much growth potential in many tech areas, but its native custom reporting feature lacked the advanced security required by ABC. The decision was made to offload transactional data in near real time to an external database utilizing ProtoSQL and make it available to our user base. This allowed our data teams to create reports and dashboards with the required security using modern tools and existing internal skill sets. It also removed much of the reporting processing load from the ERP's native database, allowing the ERP to concentrate its energy on its primary focus, which is transaction processing, which with no negative effect on the user experience resulting from large report generation as we grow our business. An additional benefit was the ability to use this near real-time replicated data to communicate to external vendor applications when an existing API was not available or was under development. This helped a lot and allowed us to deliver valuable functionality like delivery and distribution tools to our user base at an accelerated pace. As far as bumps in the road we encountered when we switched over to Pro2, like any systems communicating over a WAN, disruptions due to network outages are a cause for concern. Fortunately, due to Pro2SQL's ability to queue data activity, once the outage is eliminated, any transactions created during the outage are not lost and instead flow to the replicated database from the queue. The time it takes for these transactions to populate the external database will depend on the length of the outage and the number of transactions created during the outage. But since most of our outages are short in duration, it catches up very quickly. Long network outages and large replication events like massive updates to master and transactional data can cause replication queues to back up and delay the delivery of the data to the external database. This can be addressed in several ways, such as scheduling the massive updates to occur after hours, or thread tuning, where replication is separated over multiple threads running in parallel. Thread tuning is always beneficial for large companies and is recommended. We've opted to utilize Progress's managed services offering to assist our data teams in tuning, monitoring, installation, and support, and have found it very effective. The bottom line for us at ABC is that Pro2 has been a huge benefit to our user base and developers. So that in a nutshell is our experience with Pro2SQL. Our experience with Progress has been very positive. They're a valuable partner in all our endeavors and will be moving forward. We expect a lot of good functionality and tools to be delivered to our user base in the future because of Pro2SQL and because of Progress's help. So that said, that's it in a nutshell, Steve. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And ABC Supply is a very valued customer of Progress, so thank you. What I wanted to do is just show that Pro2 has a long history. It came out originally in 2006, and we're still enhancing and improving the product. With our release in 2023, that was designated as the long-term supported version. And even since then, we've had a patch level release in 2024. So it's not like it's a one and done type of product. We are continually enhancing the features and making it better and better. So in summary, Pro2 provide an accurate data in near real time to support better business decisions. It's critical to have that data that's relevant and current. It allows you to leverage the value of your data in your system of record. So your data from your system of record, from your production application, is getting sent over to a target for you to access. It's tailored to match the data for your specific needs. As I said, you can generate the reports using third-party applications and have those reports provide the data you need in the format that you need. It allows you to overcome technology issues. You're kind of in a box when you're stuck with your production application environment. You need to get that data out of there so you're free to do what you want with the data. Gives you the flexible reporting options for all stakeholders, not just your BI report people, but even your executives. So now we will open up to Q&A.
Great, thank you both. So now we will turn over to the Q&A session. So Jack and Steve, are you ready?
I am ready.
I'm ready.
Awesome. So the first question is, Were replication tools other than Pro2 SQL considered?
I can answer that one. Yes, they were, but since our new ERP was itself progress-based, and we had existing internal resources with extensive Pro2 skill sets from prior jobs, Pro to SQL seemed like the best fit. The other ones we looked at had a few downsides, and we figured with the experts we had on staff, it'd be a lot easier for us to get up to speed, and it turned out to be a good decision for us.
Great. The next question is, since Pro2 was installed, have additional departments within your organization wanted access to the data Pro2 provides to your reporting tools?
Yes, the replicated data has become a valuable resource to many of our departments. We had originally assumed our analytics team would be the primary consumer, but as other teams saw the value in the data that was replicated, they jumped right in. Our data science team has made considerable progress with the data that it's had a large positive effect on our bottom line. It's amazing what those guys can do when you give them the data. Those data scientist guys are like super smart, and they find ways to save money and make you more productive simply by using that data to analyze it and make suggested changes. It's really worked out very well.
Awesome. And this next question is also for you, Jack. How many installs of Pro2 are you currently using?
We're using 10 right now. We have a lot of non-prod instances we use for testing for our different teams and departments. So we have 10 of them. Not all of those are production. A lot of those are of course, non-prod, but we keep them up to date so that everything's equal.
So the next question is, this is for Steve. You mentioned that Pro2 would still capture transactions even if there is a network issue. Could you please elaborate on this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. When you install Pro2, I mentioned during the webinar, there's a piece of Pro2 that actually sits on the source production server. Well, one of those, there's a table, and that table is what records those event transactions, those cut events, those event notes. And so when the network goes down, it is still going to continue to record those event notes. And those event notes normally just have, I said, minimal information. It's the time, the table, the database, very minimal, low overhead. So it continues to record that. And then when the network comes back online, then Pro2 will reach back in and start pulling those event notes and start then pulling the associated data that relates to those event notes.
Okay.
And I don't, Jack, you had also mentioned something about networking issues. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, that was our main concern going in. Prior to using Pro2, we had our old ERP. We would do a nightly upload of all the data. Of course, all the data would be a day old, but at least that's something we could, if there was a problem, we could jump on it before the next morning. But with this near real-time replication, any interruption in the networks would stop the replication. And we found that the queuing capabilities of Pro2, where it just, as we're transacting, it's still jamming that stuff into the queue. As soon as we correct the network issue, it just starts flowing over. And like I said earlier, our network issues are very short in duration for the most part, so it doesn't bother us at all. But if we do have a large network outage like that recent one that I think everyone had, it takes a while for the replication backlog queue to free up. So those are things you have to look out for and plan for. If you're doing large replication events like mass uploads of transaction or customer data, like when we open up new locations, we do a lot of stuff like that. We schedule those after hours so that the replication can get done prior to the next morning. So it's worked very well for us, to tell the truth.
Yeah, and another thing which ABC Supply is actually in the process of doing is adding more threads to each environment and doing what we call thread balancing. Usually when a customer purchases Pro2, I always tell them, let's just go with the default number of threads that comes with the product. Let's see how replication is going, because usually after a while, a customer can identify their quote unquote trouble tables. So then they can get additional data server licenses. Those are actually what we call threads. And they can get more of those to then start processing the data and splitting out tables, like the critical tables, putting them on threads maybe by themselves, or maybe splitting them across multiple threads so that now you're processing that one table in parallel. So there's a lot of different ways that we can improve performance, especially for those trouble tables that just get pounded all the time, especially with batch processes or even during month-end processes.
Yeah, the thread tuning has really come in handy for us, especially for the applications we use, where we're using this replicated data to actually communicate with vendor partners in kind of real time. Those replicating threads are much more important than the reporting ones that we're just having reports that generate overnight or something like that. So by using thread tuning, we're able to really have those important threads for the important data going to our external vendors, jamming out really quick. They're not interfered with if there's any other issues in the systems. They're really on their own, so it works out very well.
Next question is, we use replication target for reports. Would this help me?
I assume by when you say replication targets, you are meaning OEREP or OEREP Plus. If you are using OEREP Plus, you can definitely use your OpenEdge target for reporting purposes. However, keep in mind, if you're using OEREP, your tables and your indexes have to be identical to your source. So in that scenario, you can't add indexes that are specific for your reporting needs, because if you do, you have to have those indexes as well on your source application. And as a lot of people who may know relational databases, the more indexes you add, the more of a potential performance hit you're also going to have with those additional indexes. So while you can use the OpenEdge, the OEREP target for reporting, you have to take into account that you're still limited by what indexes you can use.
The next question is, are there any plans on upgrading Pro2 to support Pro2 Kafka to allow sending database changes to a Kafka topic?
That is an awesome question. Thank you for that. I will tell you, the product management team is currently doing some research into Proto-Kafka. We do have a site where people can go online and vote up a particular feature, and Proto-Kafka happens to be one of those features on the website. I don't have the link in front of me right now, but it's AHA, and you can just click, you can put your comments, how important it would be if you could get Proto-Kafka. I know there are other customers that are looking for it. So I am doing my best to push product management to okay that type of development. But of course, it has to be a business decision and depends on the company.
Yes, I think you're talking about the ideas portal where you can vote on things.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next question is, can we configure easily with Crystal Krytal report as well? I might be saying that wrong.
Crystal report?
Yeah, Crystal.
Yeah, it's Crystal report. Yeah, Crystal report is it's a reporting tool that connects to SQL Server. So if you are comfortable with Crystal reports, you can definitely use Crystal reports for SQL Server. I haven't touched Crystal reports in I don't know how many years, so I couldn't even tell you how to go ahead and set it up. But yes, it will work against SQL Server.
Great. And Susan actually just put the link to the ideas portal in the chat. So if anyone would like to go and check that out, please go check that link in the chat to everyone. The next question is, which is the best reporting tool you've used or recommended for customizing reports?
That really depends on what your business needs are. Do you have people in-house who already have experience with certain reporting products? Let's say Power BI, BI 360. A lot of times there are going to be people in-house who already have that experience. So that would probably be the most efficient way, is just go with what your in-house talent has.
Yeah, if I could add, when we converted over, we had a lot of reports in Crystal from one of our legacy ERPs, but we have so many people with so many different skill sets in all the reporting writers. We had a lot of choices what we could use. It really depend on the people that were writing reports, because everyone's really, they're leaning towards the one they're familiar with, the report writing tools. But we found that, like with BI, everything that was there, they would all work. It's just which one is best for your organization. I would recommend figuring out which is best for your organization and standardizing on it, because you don't want to have a bunch of reports written in a whole bunch of different tools. It makes maintenance on that a little difficult.
Yeah, great comment.
Yeah, I agree. The next question is, how is data performance managed? For example, data indexes.
So I assume you're referencing the indexes on the target, which would be the SQL target or the Oracle target, or maybe the OpenEdge target. And I'm not referencing OEREP, I'm talking about Pro2 replication. Excuse me. You can have really as many indexes as you want on your target. However, you want to make sure that you give some thought to what indexes you want to add. Why are you adding them? Are they going to improve your reporting capabilities, your reporting performance? Also, as you add indexes, it's not a bad idea to every few months go back and reevaluate all of your indexes to see if there's any that you don't need anymore. Because like I said earlier, the more indexes you have, the more of a performance hit you're going to have, because now the database engine has to keep up with all those indexes when data changes or new records are created.
Great. This next question is for Jack, but Steve, jump in if you have an answer as well. But the question is, can you name a few example SQL reports with data replicated by Pro2?
Oh, yeah, we use SQL. Most of our reports are in SQL, and we use a lot of things. One of them, a recent one, is we have a thing called invoice verification. It's very important to our accounting back-end team. Make sure everything is working correctly. So having that in near real time is a great benefit. Prior to that, it was always a day old, so they didn't know there was issues until things got out to the customers. So that one there is probably one of our best uses of near real-time data.
Okay, great. The next question is, if we have progress install in Unix, and if we take a backup in Unix, can we restore that backup in progress for Windows?
The answer to that would be no. You cannot take a backup from Unix, whether it be Linux, AIX. You cannot take a backup from that OS and restore it directly into a Windows environment. What you would have to do, there are two methods you can do that with. You can do a dump and load. Excuse me. You can dump your data out of your Unix box, and then you can create the databases on your Windows box and then import that data into the Windows box. There's a little more involved to that, but kind of as a summary, that's what you need to do. The other option is you can actually use Pro2 to migrate your data, migrate your environment from one operating system to another. We call that Pro2Pro, where we install Pro2Pro and it's replicating from your Unix box to Windows or Linux. Most of our customers are going from either HPUX or AIX over to Linux. We have one right now that's a very big project where they have 4 environments, and they're going from AIX and they're going to Linux, and they're using Pro2Pro in order to do this. The reason is with Pro2Pro, you have minimal downtime, where there's a lot of companies that can't afford the downtime to do dump and loads, especially if their database is rather large. It's going to take quite a bit of time to get all that done. Well, with Pro2Pro, there's minimal downtime up front, and there's minimal downtime at the end when you're ready to cut over to your new platform.
All right, so thank you, Steve and Jack, for that great presentation and the Q&A. If we didn't get to one of your questions, we will reach out after this call and follow up in the next couple of days. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question, please respond to the email that will have ways to contact us, or reach out via the Ideas portal or the CDP. And thank you to everyone who attended today's webinar. And thank you, Steve and Jack, and have a great rest of your day.